Hello, my name is Ryan Metzger, and this is my persuasive speech. Can you tell me what normally motivates you, or what helps you get through a challenging time in your life? Or can you think about a time when you were performing extremely well at something, like in school, work, or a sport, or something along those lines? How did you reach your goals? How did you get through that challenging time in your life, or become so successful at what you were doing? Well, I'm sure we can all sit here and list about a million things to help that helps motivate us to be successful or get through challenging times. There's one factor that many of us may not consider. Interestingly enough, it is often at the very core of things like important decision making, preparing for a big exam, competing in a major sporting event, giving a presentation at school or work, etc. If you have not guessed what I'm getting at just yet, all of these involve some level of stress. Now you might ask me, doesn't stress have a negative connotation? The answer to that is yes, but it also may contribute to other things like anxiety, depression, poor eating habits, and poor decision making. That being said, my question to you is it truly something that is inherently negative, or can we use the stress to our advantage? Can we think about stress differently, and instead of having it cripple us with anxiety and fear, use it to help motivate us? Let's start out by looking at the way most of us view stress and the ill effects it may have on our overall health. We can then talk about the different strategies that we can use in order to use stress to our advantage, and finally, talk about the benefits of choosing to look at stress in a positive light. We all experience stress, at least to some extent, probably every single day of our lives, and we see too often the crippling effects that it can have on a person's health, especially when it becomes chronic or constant. According to the American Psychological Association, stress affects all systems of the body, to include musculoskeletal, respiratory, cardiovascular, endocrine, gastrointestinal, nervous, and reproductive systems. Take a second to let that sink in. If stress can negatively affect every single system in our body, think of the long-lasting damage it can cause to our overall health. To piggyback on that last point, journalist Jenny Splitter shares with us the 9 ways stress can make you sick. It can lead to depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions, insomnia, cardiovascular disease, the common cold. It can worsen diseases like HIV and AIDS. It can lead to gastrointestinal disease, chronic pain, cancer, and autoimmune conditions. According to Dr. Caroline Leaf, who is a neuroscientist, the author of Cleaning Up the Mental Mess and Neurocycle app founder, she says if anxiety and stress go unchecked, your body will shift into what she calls a state of negative or toxic stress. Once your body reaches this stage, you will tend to make poor decisions as they become more reactive. Your blood vessels will contract, which will decrease oxygen and blood flow to the brain. Dr. Sage Grazier, licensed clinical social worker and co-founder and chief clinical officer of the mental health startup Frame, explains functioning in your prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for influencing attention, impulsivity, memory, and more, goes haywire. And that was a direct quote for him. As you can see, stress can be so detrimental to our overall health if left unchecked. Now that we have gone over some of the big issues with the effects of stress on our health, let's look at the solution. How can we use stress to our advantage without allowing it to overwhelm us and cause those negative effects to our health that we are all way too familiar with? Let's first consider the TED Talk by Kelly McGonigal, How to Make Stress Your Friend. McGonigal, who is a health psychologist, discusses a study that tracked 30,000 adults in the United States for 8 years and asked them questions like, how much stress have you experienced in the last year, and how do you believe that stress is harmful for your health? The results of the study showed that there were a higher rate of deaths out of the people who experienced a high amount of stress, but only those who viewed stress as harmful to their health. Out of the people that had a high amount of stress but did not view stress as harmful, they were no more likely to die, and actually had the lowest risk of dying out of anyone in the study. McGonigal was previously telling her patients that stress was in fact bad for their health, but after reviewing the study, it made her rethink that. She now says, when you change your mind about stress, You can change your body's response to stress. I would strongly encourage anyone to watch this TED Talk from Kelly McGonigal. She does an excellent job at explaining how and why we should do this. Following along this same train of thought, Aaae and Thomas Crum have come up with a 3-step approach for responding to stress. These steps are to see it, own it, and use it. The first step is to see your stress. I interpreted this as basically recognizing the stress and putting a label on it, such as, I'm so stressed out about this upcoming exam because of the overwhelming amount of information I have to learn. According to the neuroscience research by Matt Lieberman, it shows that this allows your stress to move from the automatic and reactive centers of the brain to the more conscious and deliberate ones. The second step is to own the stress. Owning the stress allows you to recognize that this is something that is important to you, which in turn releases positive motivation. The third step is to use the stress. According to Aaae and Thomas Crum, our stress response is actually meant to help us, not kill us. When our bodies experience stress, hormones such as adrenaline and dopamine are pumped out, which help supply our body and brain with blood and oxygen, and in turn gives the individual increased energy, heightened alertness, and more narrowed focus. The goal here is to channel this increased energy, alertness, and focus as something beneficial. Another way to use stress is to learn from it and to look for areas of opportunity for the next time you experience a similar stressor. The article that goes over these 3 steps of responding to stress has the perfect name. Stress can be a good thing if you know how to use it. This is the exact message that I'm trying to portray to you all as my audience. Now that we have gone over the issues that stress can lead to if not kept in check, and some of the solutions of how we can look at stress differently for a more positive outlook, let's now go over the benefits. I've kind of touched on many of the benefits already in the first 2 main points, but to add to this list, managing stress and looking at it in a more positive light may help you sleep better, be in a better mood, improve relationships with friends and family, have fewer negative effects on your health, such as heart disease, common cold, and other diseases, to be more open to taking away learning opportunities from a stressful situation, which will help you better cope with or manage a stressful situation in the future, make better, more proactive decisions instead of reactive decisions. This list can honestly go on and on. So as you can see, there are numerous benefits to changing the way we look at stress, some of which can even potentially save your life. Now that we have reviewed the problems, solutions, and benefits of stress and changing the way we view a stressful situation, let's take a minute to review. My first main point, we talked about how stress is a problem. I wanted to make you aware of how detrimental stress can be and that it can actually affect every single major system in your body. I also talked about the 9 different ways stress can lead to or make you sick, such as depression, anxiety, cardiovascular disease, and even cancer, just to name a few. And finally, how if stress goes unchecked, it puts your body into a state of negative or toxic stress, which can prevent you from making sound decisions. In the second main point, we talked about the solutions of how we can change the way we look at stress. We took a look at Kelly McGonigal's TED Talk, where she went from telling her patients that stress was bad for their health to, if you change the way you think about stress, it can change your body's response to stress. We also reviewed the article, Stress Can Be a Good Thing If You Know How to Use It, by Aaae and Thomas Crum, and their 3-step approach to responding to stress. And finally, in the third main point, we talked about the benefits of how we can change the way we look at stress with a more positive outlook. Some of the benefits I mentioned were better sleep, better mood, better relationships, less negative impact on our overall health, learning from our stressful experiences, and making more sound decisions. If you can take the first step of changing the way we think about stress and use it instead as a tool to your advantage, you can change the way your body responds to stress in a more positive way. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.